The first Terran Retribution fleet assembled at the edge of the solar system, like a storm made of metal and fury. Captain Rowe, Chang Min stood on the bridge of his battleship Righteous Fury and watched 300 human warships form into attack formation. Each ship carried weapons that had never been tested in real combat. Each crew was trained to a level of perfection that would have been impossible without their burning desire for revenge. The Righteous Fury was painted black as space itself. Along its hull, written in white letters that could be seen from orbit, were the names of every person who had died at New Busan. All 50,000 names, from Captain Kim Dae-ho down to the youngest child in teacher Choi Mi-young's classroom. Chang Min had requested this assignment personally. His younger brother had been an engineer on New Busan, working alongside Lee Jun-ho in the Atmospheric Processing Center. Chang Min had received a message from his brother just days before the attack, talking about his new girlfriend and his plans to propose marriage. Now his brother was ash scattered across an alien-burned world. All ships report ready for hyperspace. Jump, his navigation officer announced. Chang Min looked at the star charts one more time. Intelligence had located the alien fleet at Proxima Centauri, attacking the mining station there. The same pattern as before, overwhelming force against peaceful civilians. Take us to war, Chang Min ordered. Major Han Soo-jin checked her equipment one final time as the fleet prepared to jump. She commanded the first orbital drop Marines. 3,000 soldiers trained for one specific mission, boarding alien ships and taking prisoners. The aliens had shown no mercy to human civilians, but humanity needed information. They needed to know how large the alien empire was, where their worlds were located, and what other weapons they possessed. The only way to get that information was to capture alien commanders alive. Soo-jin's Marines wore armor that made them look like mechanical demons. Their weapons could cut through alien hull material like paper. Their training had focused on fighting in the tight corridors of enemy ships where every corner could hide death. Major, one of her sergeants asked, "What if they don't want to surrender?" Soo-jin smiled coldly. "Then we'll ask the next one." Commander Oh Dong-hyun studied the intelligence reports in his secure briefing room aboard the command ship. For 3 months, his spy network had been hunting for information about the aliens who called themselves the Vorthak Empire. What they had found was disturbing. The Vorthak had destroyed 17 different civilizations over the past 1,000 years. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were extermination specialists. They found species they considered inferior, destroyed their worlds, and took their resources. Humanity was just the latest target. But Dong-hyun had also found something else in the alien communications they had intercepted. Fear. For the first time in their history, the Vorthak had encountered a species that fought back effectively. Their messages spoke of unusual human resistance and unexpected military capability. They were starting to realize they had made a mistake. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. Immediately, the tactical displays lit up with enemy contacts. 12 Vorthak battlecruisers were orbiting the mining station, exactly as intelligence had predicted. Chang Min watched the alien ships on his main screen. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like living creatures made of dark metal and malice. For a moment, he imagined his brother working peacefully in his atmospheric processor, never knowing that things like this existed in the universe. All ships, "This is Captain Chang Min," he broadcast to the fleet. "Today we begin to teach these creatures the cost of murdering our families. Remember New Busan. Remember our dead. Show them what happens when you wake sleeping giants." The alien fleet detected the human ships and moved to attack formation. They had fought dozens of species before. None had ever posed a real threat to their superior technology and numbers. They were about to learn that humans were different. The battle began at maximum range. The Vorthak fired first, their red energy beams reaching across space toward the human fleet. But the beams struck nothing but empty vacuum. The human ships had scattered like a cloud of angry hornets, their new maneuvering systems making them nearly impossible to target. Then the humans returned fire. The first volley was a test, conventional plasma cannons and kinetic projectiles, weapons the aliens might recognize. The Vorthak shields absorbed most of the damage, just as expected. The alien commanders probably felt confident that this would be another easy victory. The second volley introduced them to Dr. Nam Jae-sung's nightmares. Nanite swarms invisible to normal sensors ate, through alien shields like acid through paper. Gravity manipulation weapons twisted space itself, crushing enemy ships in impossible directions. Plasma lances hot enough to melt asteroids cut through. Vorthak armor as if it were made of cloth. 3 alien battle cruisers. Died in the first 30 seconds, Captain. Changmin watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. The aliens had designed their weapons to kill defenseless civilians. They had never faced an enemy that could fight back with equal force. Major Su-Jin, he called over the communication system. You have targets. Su-Jin's Marines launched from their ships in small, fast attack pods. The pods were designed to punch through enemy hulls and deliver soldiers directly into alien ships. As they flew toward their targets, Su-Jin could see more Vorthak ships exploding under human weapons fire. Her pod smashed through the hull of an alien battlecruiser like a bullet through glass. Su-Jin and her squad emerged into a corridor filled with surprised Vorthak soldiers. The aliens were tall and thin, covered in dark armor that looked like insect shells. Their weapons were elegant and deadly, but they had never fought humans before. The Marines moved through the ship like a natural disaster. Their armor could absorb alien weapon fire. Their guns could punch through Vorthak defenses. Most importantly, they fought with a fury that the aliens had never encountered. Bridge secured, Su-Jin reported as her team captured the alien command center. We have prisoners. Similar reports came from throughout the battle zone. Human boarding parties were capturing alien ships and crew members. The Vorthak, who had expected an easy hunt, found themselves being hunted instead. Commander Dong Hyun received the first intelligence reports from the captured aliens. What he learned made his blood run cold. The Vorthak Empire controlled thousands of worlds. Their military had millions of ships. The fleet attacking human colonies was just a small scouting force, sent to test human defenses before the main invasion began. But there was something else in the alien communications. Messages sent back to the Vorthak home world spoke of human weapons that defied understanding. Descriptions of ships that moved impossibly fast and guns that could crack planets. The aliens were calling for reinforcements, but they were also expressing something their species rarely felt: uncertainty. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, every Vorthak ship was either destroyed or captured. Not a single human vessel had been lost, though several showed damage from alien weapons. Changmin stood on his bridge, looking at the wreckage floating in space. 12 Vorthak battle cruisers, each one representing hundreds of dead human colonies, reduced to scrap metal and cooling plasma. Sir, his communication officer said, we're receiving a signal from the mining station. There are survivors, Changmin nodded. Unlike the aliens, humans tried to save lives when they could. As rescue teams launched toward the damaged mining station, Changmin studied the tactical reports. The human fleet had performed better than even the most optimistic projections. Dr. Nam Jae-sung's weapons worked perfectly. Major Su-Jin's Marines had captured valuable intelligence. Commander Dong Hyun's spy network had provided accurate information. But this was just the beginning. According to the alien prisoners, the main Vorthak fleet was already on its way to human space. Hundreds of ships armed with weapons designed to exterminate entire civilizations. Changmin looked at the names painted on his ship's hull. Captain Daeho, Dr. Somin, Engineer Junho, Teacher Mi-young, her children, all the others. Navigation, he ordered. Set course for Earth. We need to report to Fleet Command. The hunt was just beginning. In the depths of space, automated probes launched by the human fleet began their long journey toward the Vorthak Empire. They carried sensors and communication equipment, but their real cargo was simple: the knowledge of where humanity's enemies lived. Soon, the Vorthak would learn that humans did not just defend themselves, they followed their enemies home. The attack came at dawn without warning or mercy. Scout Captain Yang Tai-jin was outside the orbital defense station, checking the solar panel alignment when space around him suddenly filled with alien ships. 12 massive dark vessels, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built, appeared from nowhere. Yang Tai-jin pressed against the station's hull as the first enemy shots turned his friends inside to ash and metal fragments. The blast wave threw him into space, his emergency suit keeping him alive as he watched in horror. The alien ships looked like giant insects made of black metal. Their weapons glowed red as they fired down at New Busan. Yang Tai-jin could only float helplessly and watch his world die. Captain Kim Dae-ho was drinking his morning coffee when the first explosions lit up the sky. His cup fell to the floor as alarms screamed throughout the defense center. He ran to his command station and saw the impossible on his screens. "All units, this is not a drill," he shouted into his radio. "We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. All civilians to emergency shelters immediately." But Dae-ho knew the truth. New Busan had been built for peace, not war. Their defenses were designed to stop wild animals and small meteors, not alien warships. They had a few small guns and some protective shields, nothing more. Dr. Park So-min was in her laboratory when the building shook violently. She looked out the window and saw fire falling from the sky. The agricultural center across the valley exploded in a ball of flame that reached up to the clouds. So-min ran to her computer and began copying all her research data. 15 years of work. The knowledge that could feed humanity across the stars. She had to save it somehow. Her hands shook as she typed commands, transferring files to hidden servers on distant worlds. A shadow fell across the laboratory. So-min looked up to see an alien ship hovering directly above the building. It was beautiful in a terrible way, like a work of art designed by something that hated all life. The ship's weapon charged with a sound like screaming metal. So-min held her research data close to her chest and whispered a prayer for the children who would never taste the food she had learned to grow. The laboratory vanished in white fire. Engineer Lee Jun-ho was deep inside atmospheric processor number 3 when the attack began. The massive machine around him groaned and shuddered as explosions rocked the colony. Emergency lights flashed red as systems began failing one by one. Jun-ho knew what he had to do. If the atmospheric processors were destroyed normally, they would just stop working. But if he could overload the power core, the explosion might take some enemy ships with it. He climbed through maintenance shafts as the building collapsed around him. Alien weapons were melting through the walls, searching for him. Jun-ho reached the main power control room just as an enemy soldier broke through the door. The alien was tall and thin, covered in dark armor that looked like insect shells. Its face was hidden behind a mask, but Jun-ho could feel its hatred. It raised a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. Jun-ho smiled and pulled the emergency release on the power core. "See you in hell," he said. The atmospheric processor exploded like a small sun. The blast wave destroyed 3 city blocks and 1 alien ship. Jun-ho's sacrifice bought his people a few more minutes of life. At the elementary school, teacher Choi Mi-young gathered her children in the basement as the world ended above them. She held them close and sang gentle songs while alien weapons turned their playground into molten glass. "Teacher Mi-young," whispered her own daughter, "why are the bad people hurting us?" Mi-young had no answer. She had taught these children about kindness and hope. She had shown them pictures of beautiful worlds and told them stories about brave heroes. She had never prepared them for this. The ceiling above them began to glow red-hot. Mi-young spread her arms wide, trying to shield as many children as possible with her own body. She thought about their parents who would never see them grow up, about the futures that would never happen. "Close your eyes," she told them. "Think about your favorite place." The alien beam cut through the ceiling and found them. Lieutenant Shin Hyun-woo ran through the burning streets, trying to reach the civilian shelters. His small stunner weapon was useless against the alien soldiers, but he had to try. He had to save someone. He found a group of families trapped in a collapsed building. The parents were badly hurt, but their children were still alive. Hyun-woo helped dig them out as alien ships circled overhead like metal vultures. "This way," he shouted, leading them toward the main shelter. "Stay low and keep moving." An alien soldier stepped out from behind a burning car. It was huge, twice as tall as Hyun-woo, with weapons built into its arms. The creature made a sound like grinding metal that might have been laughter. Hyun-woo put himself between the alien and the families. His stunner wouldn't even scratch the creature's armor, but he fired anyway. The alien brushed off his shots like mosquito bites. "Run!" Hyun-woo yelled to the families. "Get to the shelter." The alien's weapon charged with blue light. Hyun-woo thought about Captain Dae-ho, who had taught him that sometimes the most important battles were the ones you knew you couldn't win. The families made it to the shelter. Hyunwoo did not. Captain Daeho fought his way to the main communication array as his colony died around him. Half his face was burned from an alien beam that had barely missed him. His left arm hung useless at his side. But he had to get a message to Earth. The communication center was mostly destroyed, but one transmitter was still working. Daeho sat at the controls and began typing the most important message of his life. Outside, alien soldiers were hunting for survivors. Daeho could hear them moving through the rubble, their metal feet ringing on broken stone. He had maybe 1 minute before they found him. His fingers flew over the keyboard. He told Earth about the attack, about the alien ships, about the weapons that could melt buildings like candles. He sent pictures of the enemy and recordings of their communications. Most importantly, he sent the location of the alien fleet. The soldiers were at the door now, burning through the metal with their weapons. Daeho finished his message and looked directly into the communication camera. "They came without warning," he said, blood running down his face. "They showed no mercy. They killed our children and burned our dreams. We built something beautiful here and they destroyed it because they could." The door exploded inward. Alien soldiers poured into the room, their weapons raised. Daeho looked straight at them, then back at the camera. "Avenge us," he whispered. The transmission ended. Across New Busan, the few remaining survivors hid in underground bunkers and maintenance tunnels. The alien ships methodically destroyed everything above ground. Buildings, roads, farms, schools, hospitals. Nothing was spared. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it was over, New Busan was gone. 50,000 people had lived there in the morning. By evening, fewer than 200 were still alive, hiding in the ruins of their world. Far above, Scout Captain Yang Tai-jin still floated in space, unconscious in his damaged suit. An automated cargo ship found him 3 days later and took him aboard. He was the only witness to see the alien fleet leave, heading deeper into human space to find more colonies to destroy. The aliens called themselves the Vorthak Empire. They had decided that humans were weak and their worlds were valuable. They planned to take everything humanity had built and make it their own. They thought the destruction of New Busan was the end of something. They were wrong, it was the beginning. The morning sun rose over New Busan, painting the sky in soft orange and pink colors. Captain Kim Daeho stood on the observation deck of the defense tower, drinking his coffee and watching the city wake up below. Children ran to school along clean streets. Farmers drove their trucks to the fields outside town. Everything looked peaceful and safe. Daeho had been protecting this colony for 10 years now. Before coming here, he had fought in wars on Earth. Those days seemed like a bad dream now. New Busan was different. It was hope made real. The colony stretched across a wide valley between 2 mountain ranges. Green fields covered the land as far as the eye could see. The crops growing there could feed millions of people across 3-star systems. Tall white buildings housed 50,000 colonists who had made this world their home. Dr. Park So-min walked through the main agricultural center, checking the morning reports. The harvest season was almost here and everything looked perfect. The modified wheat was growing faster than expected. The protein farms were producing more than planned. Her team of scientists had worked for years to make this possible. So-min had left Earth 15 years ago with a dream. She wanted to prove that humans could grow enough food to feed everyone, no matter where they lived in the galaxy. New Busan was that proof. Other colonies had tried to copy their methods, but none had succeeded as well. She picked up her tablet and walked to the greenhouse section. Inside, thousands of plants grew under artificial lights. These were the special crops that could only grow in perfect conditions. Each plant was worth more than a house on Earth. Engineer Lee Jun-ho climbed down from the atmospheric processor, wiping grease from his hands. The massive machine hummed quietly, cleaning the air and keeping the colony's environment stable. Without it, New Busan would be just another dead rock in space. Jun-ho loved working with machines. They were simple and honest. When something broke, he could fix it. When something needed improving, he could make it better. The atmospheric processors were his babies, and he treated them well. His assistant handed him a report. All systems were running perfectly. The air was clean. The temperature was steady. The weather control systems were working without problems. Jun-ho smiled and signed the report. At the elementary school, Choi Mi-young sat with her class of 25 children. They were learning about Earth, the world most of them had never seen. She showed them pictures of oceans and forests, cities and mountains. "Teacher Mi-young," asked one little boy, "why did people leave Earth to come here?" Mi-young smiled. "Because they wanted to build something new and beautiful. They wanted to make sure everyone had enough food to eat and a safe place to live." The children nodded seriously. Most of them had been born on New Busan. This was the only home they knew. They played in the parks their parents had built. They went to school in buildings made from local stone. They were growing up in a world without war or hunger. Mi-young's own 2 children sat in the front row. Her daughter was 8 and her son was 6. They looked happy and healthy. Sometimes Mi-young thought about her old life on Earth, but she never wanted to go back. New Busan was better. Lieutenant Shin Hyun-woo made his daily patrol around the colony's edge. His job was mostly checking fences and making sure wild animals stayed away from the farms. The biggest danger they faced was when the local deer-like creatures tried to eat the crops. Hyun-woo carried a small stunner weapon and a radio. That was all he needed. New Busan had no crime, no violence, and no enemies. In 20 years of human expansion into space, they had never met a hostile alien species. He stopped at the communication station, where they received messages from other worlds. Today there were letters from families on Earth, supply orders from nearby colonies, and scientific reports from research stations. Captain Dae-ho joined him there. "Anything interesting today?" "Just the usual stuff," Hyun-woo replied. "My sister on Earth says she might visit next year. Dr. So-min got approval for her new research project. The weather satellite says we'll have good conditions for the harvest." Dae-ho nodded. These were the kinds of problems he liked to have. No battles to fight. No enemies to watch for. Just normal life in a peaceful place. The 2 men walked back toward town as the sun climbed higher. Markets were opening for the day. People were meeting friends for lunch. Somewhere someone was playing music in the park. "Do you ever miss the excitement?" Hyun-woo asked. He knew about Dae-ho's military past. Dae-ho was quiet for a moment. "I thought I would. But look at what we built here. Look at those children playing. Look at Dr. So-min's crops feeding people across the galaxy. This is better than any battle I ever won." That evening, families gathered for dinner in homes across the colony. Parents helped children with homework. Friends met at restaurants to catch up on local news. Young couples walked hand in hand through the gardens. Dr. So-min worked late in her lab, excited about tomorrow's harvest samples. Engineer Jun-ho finished his maintenance reports and went home to his wife. Teacher Mi-young read bedtime stories to her children. Lieutenant Hyun-woo made his final security check and found everything quiet and safe. Captain Dae-ho stood on his observation deck one last time before bed. The colony lights twinkled below like stars. In the distance, he could see the glow of the agricultural centers where automated systems tended the crops through the night. He thought about the morning briefing he would give tomorrow. Weather looked good. Crop yields were up. The supply ship from Earth would arrive next week with mail and gifts from home. Life was good. Far above, invisible to the human eye, dark shapes moved between the stars. They had been watching and waiting for weeks. They had studied the human defenses and found them weak. They had counted the population and decided it would be easy prey. The watchers in the darkness did not understand what they were about to destroy. They saw only targets and resources. They could not see the dreams that built New Busan, or the hope it represented, or the love that held it together. They made their plans in silence, not knowing that their actions would wake something terrible in the human race, something that had slept peacefully for 20 years, dreaming of farms and schools and children playing in gardens. The morning would bring death to New Busan, but it would also bring birth to something the galaxy had never seen before. The news reached Earth 6 weeks later. Admiral Kang Sung-ho was in his office at Fleet Command when the priority message arrived. He had been reviewing routine supply reports and personnel transfers. Life in the Earth Defense Force had been quiet for 20 years. Their biggest problems were usually space pirates and cargo ship accidents. The message from New Busan changed everything. Sung-ho watched Captain Dae-ho's final transmission 3 times before he fully understood what he was seeing. The burned face, the collapsing building, the alien soldiers breaking down the door, the desperate words, "Avenge us." Seung-ho's hands shook as he reached for the emergency communication system. Within minutes, every senior officer in the Earth military was rushing to the command center. Within hours, the news had spread to every human colony in known space. President Bae In-soo stood before the emergency session of the World Council. The huge chamber was packed with representatives from every nation on Earth. For the first time in decades, no one was arguing about trade disputes or territorial rights. The main screen showed pictures from New Busan, before and after. Happy children playing in gardens, then twisted metal and ash, farms full of golden crops, then craters filled with molten glass, a thriving city of 50,000 people, then silence. For 20 years, President In-soo said, his voice carrying to billions of people watching across human space. We have been explorers. We have been farmers and scientists and teachers. We have built beautiful cities on distant worlds. We have fed the hungry and given hope to the hopeless. He paused, letting the images of destruction fill the screen. Today we remember that we are also warriors. The vote was unanimous. Every nation, every colony, every human settlement agreed. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. General Yoo Hee-jin was pulled from her retirement to lead the ground forces. She had not worn her uniform in 5 years, but it still fit perfectly. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a woman who had fought in humanity's last great war, the one that had finally brought peace to Earth. She had hoped never to fight again. The universe had other plans. Hye-jin's first meeting was with the colony survivors who had been brought to Earth. Yang Tae-jin sat across from her, his face still showing scars from his time in space. His hands trembled slightly as he described what he had seen. They moved like they had done this before, he said. Like destroying colonies was just another day's work. They didn't even try to communicate first. They just started killing. Hye-jin took notes, but she was also studying Yang Tae-jin's expression. She saw something in his eyes that she recognized from her own mirror after particularly bad battles. The look of someone who had seen too much death. How many ships? She asked. 12 big ones. Each one was maybe 3 times the size of our biggest warship. But General, Yang Tae-jin leaned forward. They moved like they weren't expecting any real fight. Like they thought we would just roll over and die. Hye-jin smiled grimly. They're about to learn differently. Dr. Nam Jae-sung had been working in the deepest levels of the Advanced Weapons Research Facility for 15 years. His projects were the things that kept military leaders awake at night. Weapons too terrible to use, too important to abandon. For 20 years, these weapons had been theoretical. Mathematical models and computer simulations. Ways to kill that humanity had invented but never needed. Now Dr. Nam Jae-sung's phone was ringing every hour with calls from Admiral Seung-ho, General Hye-jin, and President In-soo himself. They all wanted to know the same thing. How quickly could he make his nightmares real? Nam Jae-sung looked at his list of projects. Planet crackers that could split worlds in half. Stellar manipulation devices that could turn stars into weapons. Nanite swarms that could eat enemy ships down to their basic atoms. Artificial intelligence systems designed for one purpose: finding new ways to kill. 6 months, he told Admiral Seung-ho. Give me 6 months and unlimited resources, and I'll give you weapons that will make the aliens wish they had never learned to leave their homeworld. The transformation began immediately. Shipyards that had been building colony vessels and cargo haulers switched to military production overnight. The peaceful ships were stripped for parts to build warships. Every sheet of metal, every computer chip, every energy cell was redirected to the war effort. Mining operations across 50 human worlds received new orders. They needed rare metals for armor and weapons. They needed radioactive materials for power cores. They needed everything, and they needed it yesterday. Factory workers who had been making farming equipment and household goods found themselves building missile launchers and particle cannons. The same hands that had crafted tools for peace now forged instruments of war. On Earth, the recruitment centers could not handle the crowds. Men and women who had never thought about military service waited in lines that stretched for miles. They had seen the pictures from New Busan. They had heard Captain Daeho's final words. They wanted to make the aliens pay. Admiral Seung-ho worked 18-hour days, coordinating the largest military buildup in human history. His staff brought him reports from across human space. Ship construction was ahead of schedule. Weapons testing was exceeding expectations. Troop training was producing soldiers with a level of motivation that drill instructors had never seen before. Sir, his aide said one morning, the Titan shipyards report they've completed the first batch of heavy cruisers. The Mars weapons facility says they've solved the power distribution problem with the new plasma cannons. And the asteroid mining stations are producing raw materials at 300% of normal capacity. Seung-ho nodded, but he was looking at a different report. Intelligence had located the alien fleet. They were attacking another human colony, a small research station called Haven Point. The colony had been able to send one brief message before going silent. They're here. Same ships, same weapons. God help us. General Hyejin stood in the training facilities on Luna, watching new recruits learn to use the weapons Dr. Nam Jae-sung had designed. The soldiers moved with deadly precision, but she could see something else in their faces. A cold anger that burned steady and bright. These were not professional soldiers fighting for pay or glory. These were ordinary people who had seen their children threatened. Farmers who would never again feel safe in their fields. Teachers who could not forget the empty desks in their classrooms. Engineers who knew that everything they had built could be destroyed in an instant. "Ma'am," one of her sergeants asked, "when do we ship out?" Heejin looked at the calendar. 3 months since New Busan had died. 3 months of building and training and preparing. Soon, she said. Very soon. President In-soo received daily reports from Admiral Seung-ho and General Heejin. The numbers were staggering. Humanity was transforming itself into something that had never existed before. A species entirely focused on war. Every human world was contributing. Colony ships were being converted into troop transports. Civilian factories were working around the clock. Research stations were developing new battle tactics. The entire civilization was becoming a weapon pointed at one target. In-soo thought about the aliens who had started this. They had looked at humanity and seen weakness. They had seen peaceful farmers and thought they could take whatever they wanted. They had made the mistake of confusing kindness with helplessness. Dr. Nam Jae-sung stood in his laboratory, looking at the first production model of his most terrible creation. The weapon had no official name. His team called it the World Ender. It was beautiful in the way that only something designed for perfect destruction could be beautiful. Smooth curves and elegant lines that hid enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. The mathematics behind it were poetry written in the language of annihilation. His assistant handed him the final test results. Every system was perfect. Every calculation was verified. The weapon would do exactly what he had designed it to do. "Sir," the assistant asked quietly, "are we really going to use this?" Nam Jae-sung thought about the pictures from New Busan, about Dr. Park So-min's research burning in alien fire, about teacher Choi Mi-young's children who would never grow up, about Captain Daeho's final message. "Yes," he said, "we are going to use everything." The news of humanity's first victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had hidden from the Vorthak Empire for centuries watched in amazement as reports filtered through interstellar communication networks. The humans, those peaceful farmers and scientists that everyone had ignored, had destroyed an entire Vorthak fleet without losing a single ship. But Fleet Admiral Kim Min-ho knew this was only the beginning. Min-ho stood in the command center of the Grand Fleet, watching the largest military force in human history prepare for its final mission. 2,000 warships floated in formation around Earth, their hulls gleaming with weapons that could reshape worlds. Each ship represented everything humanity had learned about war. In 6 months of desperate preparation, they carried Dr. Nam Jae-sung's most terrible creations. They were crewed by soldiers trained to a level of perfection that bordered on inhuman. Most importantly, they were commanded by people who would never forget the images from New Busan. "Admiral," his intelligence officer reported, "long-range sensors have located the main Vorthak fleet. They're 3 days out from our outer colonies." Min-ho studied the tactical display. 800 alien ships moving in the classic Vorthak pattern. They would hit the human colonies one by one, destroying everything they found. It was the same strategy they had used to exterminate 17 civilizations. "How many civilians in their path?" he asked. "Approximately 2 million people across 5 worlds." Min-ho nodded grimly. The aliens were forcing his hand, just as they had planned. But they had made one crucial error in their calculations. They still thought like predators hunting helpless prey. They did not understand that they were now facing apex predators. On the Vorthak command ship Death of Hope, Emperor Zulthak studied the reports from the Proxima Centauri battle. His species had conquered the galaxy through superior technology and absolute ruthlessness. No enemy had ever destroyed a Vorthak fleet so completely. The humans were proving more troublesome than expected. Zulthak was ancient, even by Vorthak standards. He had personally overseen the extermination of 7 different species. He understood the psychology of inferior races. When faced with overwhelming force, they surrendered or fled. They did not fight back with weapons that defied physical law. "Emperor," his tactical advisor said, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans have demonstrated unexpected capabilities." Zulthak's response was a sound like grinding metal that served as Vorthak laughter. "One lucky victory does not make them our equals. We will crush their remaining colonies and they will submit or die like all the others." But privately, the Emperor was concerned. His scouts reported that human ships were appearing throughout Vorthak space, not attacking but simply observing, watching, learning. It was behavior no prey species had ever displayed. Admiral Minho made his decision with the cold logic of someone who had studied war his entire life. The Vorthak fleet was too large to defeat in direct combat, even with humanity's advanced weapons. Traditional tactics would result in massive human casualties, so he would not use traditional tactics. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "We are implementing the Stellar Hammer Protocol." His bridge crew looked at him with a mixture of awe and horror. The Stellar Hammer was theoretical warfare taken to its ultimate conclusion. It required coordination between thousands of ships and weapons that consumed entire asteroids as ammunition. It was also completely insane by any reasonable military standard. "Sir," his tactical officer said carefully, "the Stellar Hammer has never been tested at full scale." Minho looked at the pictures from New Busan that covered one wall of his command center. Children's toys melted into abstract sculptures. Schools turned to glass craters. Farms that would never grow food again. "It has now," he said. The Grand Fleet split into 7 attack groups, each one larger than most species' entire military. They moved through space like a coordinated organism, positioning themselves around the Vorthak formation with mathematical precision, Captain Changmin commanded, one of the attack groups from his rebuilt Righteous Fury. The E ship still carried the names of New Busan's dead, but now it also bore the scars of a dozen battles. Changmin and his crew had become legends in the 6 months since their first victory. "Captain," his weapon officer reported, "stellar manipulation systems are online. Mass driver arrays are loaded and ready. Nanite swarms are deployed and awaiting orders." Changmin nodded. Around him, space was filling with the tools of absolute war. Asteroids the size of cities accelerated to relativistic speeds. Fusion charges capable of igniting gas giants. Artificial intelligence systems designed for one purpose: calculating the most efficient ways to destroy enemy fleets. In the center of the Vorthak formation, Emperor Zulthak finally understood what he was facing. His sensors showed impossible readings, energy signatures that violated known physics, weapon systems that drew power from stars themselves. For the first time in his 1,000-year life, Zulthak felt something his species had nearly forgotten: fear. "Open communication channels to the human fleet," he ordered. His tactical advisor looked shocked. The Vorthak Empire had never negotiated with inferior species. "We offer terms," Zulthak broadcast on all frequencies. "Surrender your aggressive fleets and we will limit our occupation to your industrial worlds. Your civilians will be spared if you submit." Admiral Minho received the message while reviewing final targeting solutions. He thought about Captain Daeho's final words, about Dr. So Min's burned research, about Teacher Mi-young's children who would never grow up. "Send a response," he told his communication officer. The message that reached Emperor Zulthak was brief and delivered in perfect Vorthak language, which meant human intelligence services had been very busy. "You had your chance for peace when you left our farmers alone. Now you get to learn why we are not extinct after millennia of warfare on our home world." The Stellar Hammer fell like the wrath of God's asteroids moving at 90% light speed, punched through Vorthak ships like bullets through paper. Fusion charges turned empty space into temporary suns. Nanite swarms consumed entire enemy squadrons, converting them into raw materials for more weapons. But the most terrible sight was the gravitational manipulator arrays. These weapons reached across space and grabbed the Vorthak formation with invisible hands. crushing ships together like grapes in a fist. Emperor Zulthak watched his empire's greatest fleet disappear in 6 hours of absolute destruction. Ships that had conquered civilizations were reduced to free-floating atoms. Warriors who had never known defeat died without understanding how they had been killed. His own command ship, protected by shields that could deflect supernova, lasted slightly longer than the others. As the hull breached around him, Zulthak sent one final message to his homeworld. The humans are not like the others. They are not prey. They are predators who have been sleeping. We have awakened them, and they are coming for us all. The message reached the Vorthak homeworld 3 days before Admiral Minho's ships arrived. The siege of the Vorthak capital was brief and decisive. The aliens had built their greatest city on a world surrounded by defensive stations and protected fleets. They had designed it to be unconquerable. They had not designed it to withstand an enemy that could move planets. Admiral Minho stood on his flagship's observation deck, watching as human engineering teams repositioned asteroids around the Vorthak homeworld. The rocks would not be used as weapons, that would be wasteful. Instead, they would serve as construction platforms for the largest mining and industrial operation in galactic history. Every Vorthak ship would be dismantled and studied. Every alien weapons system would be reverse-engineered. Every piece of their technology would become part of humanity's growing arsenal. The Vorthak Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, would be systematically converted into raw materials for human expansion. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 47 Vorthak colony worlds. They're offering tribute and begging for mercy." Minho considered this. Mercy was not a concept the Vorthak had understood when they burned New Busan. But humans were not Vorthak. Inform them that we accept their surrender. Their civilian populations will be relocated to reservation worlds where they can live safely, under human supervision. Their military personnel will face trial for crimes against sentient life. The aide looked surprised. "Sir, that's remarkably generous considering what they did to us." Minho looked at the tactical display showing human fleets throughout former Vorthak space. In 6 months, humanity had gone from victim to the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. "We are not fighting to become like them," he said. "We are fighting to make sure nothing like New Busan ever happens again." 1 year after the destruction of New Busan, Captain Yang Tai-jin stood on the observation deck of the new orbital defense station above the rebuilt colony. The station was 10 times larger than the old one, armed with weapons that could destroy fleets. Below him, New Busan lived again. The buildings were different, harder and more angular than before. The defensive systems were visible everywhere, integrated into the architecture itself. The children who played in the parks did so under the protection of weapons that could crack worlds.